Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste everyone. Welcome to our Ashtami, day 8 of our Navaratri Sadhana. We'll begin the sadhana with 3 Omkaras. Settling down and just feeling. Just feeling. And then shifting the feeling to being aware. Soft body, soft face. 2 cleansing breaths. Preparing for Omkara. Inhaling deeply. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaḥ. Harihi Om. Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvannotibhis Siddhasadanam Mahāgauryai Namaḥ. Om Prano Devī Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhīnama Vitryavatu Ano Divo Brihatah Parvatada Saraswati Yajatagantu Yajñam Havan Devi Jujushana Gritachi Shagman No Vachamushati Shrunotu Vāgdevyai Namaḥ. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pranayam. Taking the mudra of your choice. Vishnu mudra, Nasabra mudra. We will first start with Surya Vedana. 10 rounds today. 10 rounds of Surya Veda, followed by 10 rounds of Chandra Veda. At the end of your practice, place your palms on your lap. Become aware of the subtle changes, the subtle difference, the sudden, subtle shift in the quality of your breath. As we prepare for Nadi Shodhana, 5 rounds with the mudra, 5 rounds without the mudra. When you're done with the practice, please take on the Namaskara mudra so that I know that you're done. Lower your palms into your lap, taking on the mudra of your choice as we move on to mantra sadhana. We'll begin by asking ourselves a few questions. Who am I? What do I want? What do I really, really want? What is my purpose in life? How can I help? How can I serve? What am I grateful for in this moment? What am I thankful for? Allow all of these questions and answers to lift up above you, and allow the universe and karma to work out the details for you. Bring to mind your Guru Mantra if you've been initiated, or you can use the Omkara, mentally repeating it on every inhale and exhale. I'll watch the time and let you continue meditating gently until it's time for us to move on to the next phase. Now very gently release the mantra and sit comfortably with your eyes closed. We will move on to the next phase of mantra sadhana, beginning with the 32 names of Ma Durga. Repeat it 3 times. Om Durga Durgartishamani Durga Padvini Varini Durga Machedini Durga Sadhini Durga Nashini Durga Todharini Durga Nihantri Durga Mapaha Durga Madhyanada Durga Daitya Lokadavanala Durga Ma Loka Durga Matma Swarupini Durga Marga Prada Durga Mavidya Durga Mashrita Durga Madhyana Samsthana Durga Madhyana Bhasini Durga Moha Durga Maga Durga Martha Swarupini Durga Ma Sura Samhantri Durga Ma Yudhadharini Durga Magi Durga Mata Durga Mya Durga Meshwari Durga Bhima Durga Bhama Durga Bha Durga Darini Om Durga Durgartishamani Durga Padvini Varini Durga Machedini Durga Sadhini Durga Nashini Durga Todharini Durga Nihantri Durga Mapaha Durga Madhyanada Durga Daitya Lokadavanala Durga Ma Loka Durga Matma Swarupini Durga Marga Prada Durga Mavidya Durga Mashrita Durga Madhyana Samsthana Durga Madhyana Bhasini Durga Moha Durga Maga Durga Martha Swarupini Durga Ma Sura Samhantri Durga Ma Yudhadharini Durga Magi Durga Mata Durga Mya Durga Meshwari Durga Bhima Durga Bhama Durga Bha Durga Darini Om Durga Durgartishamani Durga Padvini Varini Durga Machedini Durga Sadhini Durga Nashini Durga Todharini Durga Nihantri Durga Mapaha Durga Madhyanada Durga Daitya Lokadavanala Durga Ma Loka Durga Matma Swarupini Durga Marga Prada Durga Mavidya Durga Mashrita Durga Madhyana Samsthana Durga Madhyana Bhasini Durga Moha Durga Maga Durga Martha Swarupini Durga Ma Sura Samhantri Durga Ma Yudhadharini Durga Magi Durga Mata Durga Mya Durga Meshwari Durga Bhima Durga Bhama Durga Bha Durga Darini Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We will now chant Shri Suktam. Om Hiranyavarnam Harinim Suvarnarajatasrajam Chandram Hiranmayil Lakshmin Jatavedo Ma'avaha Tam Ma'avaha Jatavedo Lakshmim Manapagaminiim Yasyam Hiranyam Vindeyangam Ashvam Purushanaham Ashvapurvam Rathamadhyam Hastina Adaprabodhinim Shriyan Devi Mupahvaye Shrirma Adevi Jushatam Kamso Smitam Hiranya Prakara Mardranjvalantim Triptan Tarpayantim Padme Sthitam Padmavarnam Tamiho Pahvaye Shriyam Chandram Prabhasam Yashasajvalantim Shriyalloke देवजुष्टामुदाराम् तां पद्मिनीमीं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये लक्ष्मीर्मे नश्यतां त्वां वृणे आदित्यवर्णे तपसोऽधिजातो वनस्पतिस्तव वृक्षोऽथ बिल्वः तस्य फलानि तपसानुदन्तु मायान्तरायाश्च बाह्या अलक्ष्मीः उपैतुमान् देवसखः कीर्तिश्च मणिना सह प्रादुर्भूतोऽस्मि राष्ट्रेऽस्मिन् कीर्तिमृद्धिं ददातु मे क्षुत्पिपासामलान् ज्येष्ठामलक्ष्मीन् नाशयाम्यहम् अभूतिमसमृद्धिं च सर्वान् निर्णुद मे गृहात् गन्धद्वारान् दुराधर्षान् नित्यपुष्टां करीषिणीम् ईश्वरीं सर्वभूतानां तामिहोपह्वये श्रियम् मनसः काममाकूतिं वाचः सत्यमशीमहि पशूनां रूपमन्नस्य महि श्रीश्रयतां यशः कर्दमेन प्रजा भूतां मयि सम्भव कर्दम श्रियं वासय मे कुले मातरं पद्ममालिनीम् आपसृजन्तु स्निग्धानि चिक्लीतवस मे गृहे निच देवीं मातरं श्रियं वासय मे कुले आर्द्रां पुष्करिणीं पुष्टिं पिङ्गलां पद्ममालिनीं चन्द्रां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः आर्द्रां यः करिणीं यष्टिं सुवर्णां हेममालिनीं सूर्यां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः ताम आवह जातवेदो लक्ष्मीमनपगामिनीं यस्यां हिरण्यं प्रभूतं गावो दास्योश्वान विन्देयं पुरुषानहम् ॐ महादेव्यै च विद्महे विष्णुपत्न्यै च धीमहि तन्नो लक्ष्मीः प्रचोदयात् Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Allow the energy of Sri Suktam to settle down around you and within you. As you slowly become aware of your surroundings, the space around you, the weight of your body on the floor, your presence in your space. As you sit safely in sadhana, bring your palms together to heart center, gently bowing your head. Rub your palms together till they're nice and warm. And then place them on your eyes and across your face. As you gently flutter your eyelids open with a smile in your heart, a smile in your heart, and a smile on your face. Hari Om Tat Sat. Mahāgauryai. That's what you can see today. Mahāgauryai. Today is the 8th day of Navaratri. Ashtami. Ashta meaning 8. The 8th day, 8th night. And you'll find Ashta very often in Sanskrit, in many of the terms that you might already be familiar. On this day, we have already moved from what Kalratri did and of the victory of good over evil. So now we celebrate the forms of Durga, which are resplendent, giving, compassionate, forgiving above all. And that forgiveness is not a forgiveness which is transactional. It's a forgiveness that goes beyond transaction, including the forgiveness towards asuras even. It crystallizes for us in very different ways. We are called to be divine, and yet we are very human. Mahāgauryai is called Mahāgauryai. Gauri means fair, one who is fair. And Maha is very or bigger or superfluous, too much of it. So Mahāgauryai, the great fair one. And why is she fair? If you remember the Brahmacharini story, where she performed intense penance for many thousands of years to appease or to invite, to call in, to please also Shiva. And as she did this, 10,000 years is not a small time, and this is many, many more, many tens of thousands of years. And so where was Shiva when all of this happened? Shiva was in his own state of stillness. Shiva had moved from the Tandav, the dance of destruction that he had done when his wife Sati had died. And he was very upset. So he had gone into the state of stillness. And that state of stillness lasted for many lifetimes, where Sati had reincarnated in multiple forms to reunite with Shiva. But Shiva was sitting, playing hard to get, and he's like, not happening, I'm just here. And Sati came around as Parvati, or Parvati came about as Shailaputri, as Brahmacharini, and all of these ways in which to say, I am here again, because that is the only form of Shakti, where she's constantly arriving. There's a change, and there is that constant yearning to unite with Shiva. And when Shailaputri was still Shailaputri, when she was in the mountains, Narada, the sage, had come to her and given her insight also into all her previous lifetimes, when she was Brahmacharini as well. And at that point, when she realized that she was not just another woman, and that she had a divine purpose to unite with Shiva, and this is the history, this is why she was born again, she went into that intense state of penance, despite being a princess, by surviving on forest fruits and berries and all of that, and intense meditative state, intense penance. And over many lifetimes, you see what happens when we don't have water for a week and we need to have a bath, right? We accumulate a lot of grime, a lot of external impurities, dirt, all of that. We're not talking about the internal at this point, the external. And while she was performing this internal cleansing, because she is Shakti, and a lot of natural forces also come along, her exterior was covered in lifetimes of grime and dust and leaves flowing, all of these things, all the natural forces. And after all of this time, when Shiva was finally, when he realized that, oh, there is here someone who's been doing all of this penance for me, he was pleased. And he came by and he, if you see Shiva, he's got the moon in his hair, in his locks, and he also has the river Ganges flowing through his hair. So the moon and the Ganges are resident in Shiva's hair, and that the flow of those Ganges, in some, depending on which part of the world the story has actually is being told, okay, is being narrated, it's either the flow of Ganges from his hair, or where he asked her to go and dip herself or bathe in the Mansarovar lake. Okay, both of them are very significant water bodies in India. So go ahead and have a look about them, read up on them, and you'll see where they are geographically situated as well. And when these pure waters fell or trickled down over Parvati in her form of completely being encrusted with centuries of dirt, this layer just washed off. And what remained below was this clear, white, milky white body, which is indicative of a purification of all the dirt that was accumulated. All right. Again, very symbolic in the purification process. Okay. And not to be considered as a very contemporary form of colorism. And I need to say that. Okay, we're not talking here in terms of colorism. We all know that if we have to wear clean clothes, we know the difference between a clean outfit, even if it is a black outfit. We know when a black outfit will be dirty because it will have a stain of any other color on it. And the most obvious way to indicate something that was washed or unwashed, cleansed or uncleansed, was between accumulated dirt and a being or life under it when that accumulated dirt has been washed off. Okay. And the form of the mother that emanated from this was Mahāgauryai. Now, this is also in stark comparison to Kalratri from the previous day, where it was the purifying force of darkness. The purifying force of darkness in the form of Kalratri. So we're still looking at two energetic forces of where compassion in the form of darkness, compassion in the form of lightness. And I say this over here only to indicate that both forms of the goddess have emanated from Ma Durga. There is no difference. There is just a subtlety of what is being performed. What is the need at that point in time? What is the expression at that point in time? And it's always, even if we are talking about a katha here, of a story, even in a katha, it's important for us to approach the katha contextually. You need to establish context even when you're listening to a story. If you take a story exclusively and remove it from the context of where it's coming from, then you are bound to settle down and allow your lower mind, your very reactive mind, to judge and create more chaos for yourself. So this is an important thing for all of us to listen, for us to pay attention to when it comes to context, when it comes to Navaratri, when it comes to, conversations that require contextual understanding, at the same time, conversations that invite your imagination to open up a world of imagery. And when you see something, your sight usually gets clouded. Remember, we spoke about Dhumra Lochana yesterday, right? Clouded vision will allow us to, will not allow actually, it will nudge us towards making very biased or colored decisions, colored thoughts, colored judgments, which are not necessarily seen through the light of wholeness, of its entirety. And that purity is what we get when we actually approach this through a sense of, I need to know on a wider context. And context then matters, because you have to see when the kala of these stories, the kala of the origin of these Puranas. Puranas also means, in contemporary Hindi, Puranas means old. It's not just old, it is Sanatana. It's eternal. It's come from a time before time in itself. And we are trying to minimize it, to reduce it to an understanding of 2022, which is Kali Yuga, where we don't have the ability to discern. We do not have it. We have to work towards getting to the ground zero of discernment. And that's why context matters. And that's why it's important for us to actually look at that through the lens of, where am I today? Not just who am I, but where am I today and who am I becoming in all of this? Okay, if it's driving you to be very reactive, then the ask is to pause, to step back. Okay. Now, I've got a couple of questions. I've received a couple of questions, and all of them fit into today's energy of Mahāgauryai. Okay. Mahāgauryai is that essence, or that energy of the Divine Mother that is after the violence, after the bloodshed, after the war, after the battle. The energy of forgiveness, the energy of compassion. Now, I will address the question that I got today, okay, first. It's a long question, okay? So I will read it. And so we've normally spoken about, love. And we've spoken about, so here's this. My question is around the love of the Divine Mother. It's a big question, but my understanding is that since everything in the world and universe was manifested by Shakti, then good and bad have equal value. And that we are here as beings to allow the divine to experience herself in a way that isn't possible as energy. Therefore, is love a quality of the divine or more a human emotion? Do we say the Divine Mother loves us out of our human desire to feel love? I feel love in nature, or rather I love nature, but I do not feel nature loves me back. Rather, nature and humans are part of the same thing, the same essence, and therefore we have a relationship. But I do not know if it's a two-way affair. Does that make sense? So I guess my question is, how can love be experienced from the Divine Mother, either practically or theoretically? Good one, no? This is what I read the first thing when I open my eyes this morning. And I say, okay, Lavina, Navaratri is not yet done. You've got work to do. First, good and bad have equal value. Who decides what is good or bad? Okay. Good or bad depends on social filter also. Okay. What is good today, what is acceptable today, what is politically correct today would have been unheard of 20 years ago. Okay. That is what is socially accepted. However, what is considered good by one person may also be considered bad by the other. What is considered bad by someone will be considered good and acceptable by the other. Okay? Both the good and the bad that are being spoken about right now are actually the actions. The actions are being perceived as good or bad. But what is the perspective of the person deciding if this is good or bad? In very simple terms, they aren't walking in the other person's shoes. Usually, this decision of good or bad is very far removed from the actual incident. Okay? We do not have all the information. We do not have all the clues. We do not have all the facts even. No one has all the facts. Someone who's sitting to my right can only see this side of me. They don't see what's happening on the other side. None of you know what's behind me or how my shawl is falling behind me. For that matter, none of you know what I'm wearing below what you can see on Zoom either. Right? You can't. But you don't have the entire facts. And I'm not standing up to prove anyone anything. Okay? So, but the fact is that any action that you see, that we see, is only and only clouded by how we perceive it. Okay? Only that. Then we may sit together and we may have a conversation. Okay, and then you'll add something. Ekta will say, I saw this. Patty will say, I saw that. Rishabh will say, I saw this. And Kristen will say, yeah, but I saw all of you and I saw something else as well. In fact, someone will say, I had my video off. I didn't see anything. Right? And you really don't know. But they are still, what you're deciding on are based on actions that you can see. Everything. You can see something. So they are someone's actions, either, with my hands, with my legs, or with my words. What I'm saying also is an action. But what you are receiving is through the filter of your senses. What you can see, what you can hear, what you can feel, that is what you are perceiving. And all of that is dependent on where you are presently, your frame of mind, what is your nature. And if I may use this word very lightly, your state of evolution. Okay? For some people, everything might be a trigger. For some others, they've already moved past some, they've worked past some, and they see some things as more acceptable. Some people are still stuck to in a place where they say, no, not acceptable at all. We need to fight. We need to do this. We need to do that. Okay? So this good or bad is not cast in stone. No one knows it. And that's because we are just meant to experience life. The decision of what good or bad is a little more complex. Okay? And there is another question that this person had asked earlier, which actually ties into this one. So I will address the love of the Divine Mother just after I read the previous question, because you needed to understand this context based on that previous question, okay? The other question is, how or can we tell the difference between something that is our karma to work through and something we should not accept and work to change? I'm interested in more interpersonal relationship issues here. There's thinking that it's in your karma, so we should accept things the way they are, or alternatively, do we consider it unfair or not right and fight against? Obviously, not one size fits all answer. So appreciate that it's very broad. Okay. So I just spoke about karma, and those are actions. And I also spoke about good and bad, saying, something happens and what is good, something happens, what is bad. And then what is karma? Now, just if you had to be crossing the road with me, okay, because I don't want to put one of you, any of you, you're crossing the road with me. And while I'm speaking with you and I'm crossing the road, I'm on the phone. Okay, I get a phone call. I get lots of phone calls, right? I get a phone call, and as I'm crossing, you're on my left, depending on which side of the traffic it is in. But suppose the oncoming traffic is from the right. and I don't pay attention. I step onto the road and there's a bus coming at full speed from the right. What are you going to do? You see the bus coming, you're with me. What are you going to do? Are you going to allow me to cross? You'll probably drag me back or push me back onto the pavement. You'll do something, even if it were a stranger. You'd do that, right? Now you did something. You pushed me. You pushed me, and when I fell, I hurt myself. There was a cart nearby. I went and fell. I cut my forehead. I don't know what, something. I must have broken something, scrapes, bruises, all of that. You hurt me very badly, and I needed to be taken to the hospital. You pushed me. You hurt me. And someone standing at the side looked at you pushing me, and they say, what did you do? I saw her push this woman. I saw her push this woman, and she fell and she hurt herself. But what did you do? You did push me. You cannot deny that. You won't. But you pushed me because you know, that was your nature. You wanted to save my life, or you saved my life. You knew that there was an oncoming bus. The other person didn't see the bus. The other person may not even be in a place where they would ever see the bus. All they saw was you pushing me and me getting hurt. And if I fainted, I never saw the bus either. Right? So who decides if your action is good or bad? Do you speak for yourself? Who decides? Ishvara decides. What you did was karma. You just did the action, not that karma of what's going to come. You did a karma. You did an action. You did an action. The passerby did an action by seeing. Everyone did something. But every karma, every action has a karma phala, a fruit of the action. Two fruits of the actions that can happen. One, you pushed me, I hurt myself, you caused some pain. The result of that would be this passerby coming and blaming you and saying, arrest her, she tried to push her down, and you know, you have to penalize her, you have to punish her, and all of that stuff. That's the visible fruit of the action. Or the visible fruit is also that I fell down, I hurt myself. That's the drishta phala, the one that you can see. But the outcome, the real karma phala, is the one that you cannot see. The one that is dependent on the intention of your action. And that intention of your action can only be decided by Ishvara. Because Ishvara is the karma phala data, the giver of the fruit of your action. Not anyone else. So good or bad is not really decided by us, because we have just as much as 3D vision. And right now we're more or less having a 2D vision, even though it's on Zoom, right? Not really 2D, but you know. So that multidimensional view and awareness or perspective, and all of these are words that we use as humans. I use the word view, perspective, because I have eyes. Ishvara is beyond all of that. But for us to understand, we'll say it's not through our perspective that good and bad is judged. Okay? It is through a higher understanding of what is good or bad. Because for that higher Ishvara, whatever we do, good or bad, is both just an action. We polarize it as humans because that is our job. We're just here to polarize and create a mess. Right? For Ishvara, there is no polarity. There is no polarization. For Ishvara, it just is. Even our action just is. Okay, she did it. She did it. And now she has to receive an outcome of that. And no, not all things that appear to be good deeds are going to receive presence and merits from Ishvara. Okay? We know a lot of people in the public eye who do all sorts of crazy stuff and still are living the life. And we also know all sorts of people, many people, who do good work, who do good work, and they still live in what we would otherwise call as, I don't know, poverty, pain, suffering. We know that, right? And we say, oh, this is so unfair. But how long do you know them? How long is your lifetime with them? It's just this lifetime. Karma, or the karma phala, doesn't just come in this lifetime. You're probably living out the karma of zillions of lifetimes back. And you'll have to come into my karma class for me to explain it to you, okay? With the M&Ms. Those of you who attended my M&Ms class know that I teach that with M&Ms or Skittles, depending on what I have, okay, at home. Or gems. In India, we have gems, okay? So your good or bad is now dependent on karma. But here's the thing. Say, do we accept things? And when do we know that it is karma playing out? Now, if that particular share of pain is what I have to endure in this lifetime, then I have to endure it. And there is no changing it. But we don't know if what's happening to us is a karma that we have to live through or something that we can change. We don't know that. We really wouldn't know. We don't know if, if a situation that has taken 10 years of my life already if it's going to change with me persevering for one day and it'll change tomorrow, or it'll never change, if that is what I have to exhaust. So what do I do then? The first thing is, you just do what you need to do after you discern. You do what you need to do. If you feel that there is an adharmic action that you have to speak about, that you have to speak out about, that you have to call out, call in, whatever, if you have to do something about it, align with dharma, do it. Do it. If it's supposed to yield something for you, and if it is supposed to change, it'll change. But that's not in your hands. That is the role of Ishvara. Don't take on Ishvara's role. Take on your own very human role. Do what you need to do. If you think you can do something to alleviate pain, alleviate suffering, remove an abuser, walk out of an abusive relationship, karma does not mean that you become a doormat because you've got the sense to it, right? Karma does not mean that, oh, this is my karma, I have to suffer. No, you don't. If you can do something about it, and you do receive the support, and you do receive, now see, these are all very practical things, okay? This is not us making excuses or not recognizing that when people are in abusive relationships, sometimes it takes many years for us to get out of it. Okay, it's not as easy as I say, oh, if you're in an abusive relationship, just walk up and leave. You don't. There is an evolution in that. There is an awareness. There is a support system. There are people who come in. Sometimes you don't feel. Sometimes you're not ready to reach out. Sometimes you're not ready to even recognize any of that. And those are all human emotions that may be a part of karma till it comes to a point of you being aware that, listen, Ishvara is not, sitting and being some sadistic someone there saying, let me see how long she's going to suffer. No, that's not what it is. It is a state of awareness. And this is where the compassion comes in, right? By being very aware that we don't use these terms, compassion, forgiveness, and all, as bypassing mechanisms. You don't use these terms to bypass the healing that you need to go through, because that healing is eventually moksha. That healing is liberation, but not with a band-aid until you've really healed. So that's why healing is a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with one sudden Insta meme that shows up on your feed and says, oh, yes, I feel so healed. You may, but it may take time, right? So should we accept things the way they are? If you're thinking that it's a passive way to sit back and say, oh, this is karma, I don't need to do anything, then that non-doing is also karma. And you will have to pay the price of that sooner or later. Doesn't mean that if you don't do anything and something bad happens, bad will come back to you. That's not how it works. It depends, there is punyam, the merits that you get out of it, or the experience, the potential for pleasure and the potential for pain. That's it. So all these people who are doing all these crazy things now and really living the life, they must have gathered a lot of potential for pleasure in a previous lifetime. So they're getting away with all of that by living on yachts and, running away and sitting in different countries, doing all of that stuff, while we must be having a little bit of papam to exhaust in this lifetime. Okay. So you have to do what you do. You need to still show up. You need to work. You need to discern. You need to purify yourself to the point that you have intellectual discernment. Only when you discern will you be able to know what is the action you need to take. And not all action is fighting for something that is right. Fighting is not the answer for everything. Sometimes it is just stepping back. Sometimes it is not doing anything. Sometimes it is speaking up. Sometimes it is speaking a little louder. Sometimes it is having courage. Sometimes it is having the courage to not do anything. Okay, so all of these are actions, and all of these may be perceived as good or bad. If you have your axis of discernment that guides you on the next step, then another person's opinion won't matter, because you would have discerned your way through, and that requires courage and a lot of tapas and a lot of energy. One of you in this group a couple of months back had taken a very courageous step and spoken about Hindu phobia in their organization. Okay, and that took courage. And that took courage even from a place of not knowing enough. But still it needed to be said. Many of us, there was someone else also in this group who had spoken to a person of authority in an established system that she is in. And that took courage. And it took her a couple of days, if I'm not mistaken, to come out of it. These are all choices that we make. When you made that action, when you acted that day, you didn't know what's going to come out of it. Many of you have stepped out of it. You're not even in that circus anymore. You're not in that organization, right? You're not in that space and you don't really know, but something came out of it. And you don't know. You just need to do your karma. You just need to do your action. The resultant or the result of it is not in your hands. And you don't need to waste your energy on that. Eat cake instead. Okay. You don't need to sit and worry about what's going to happen if I do this, what's not going to happen, who's going to like me, is this going to be you need to think about all of that, and you need to do your action, and then the rest will show up. Under no circumstances do any of these philosophies condone remaining in a place of pain. Under no circumstances do any of these philosophies or teachings tell us that we have to remain in abusive relationships, that we have to take abuse. This is my karma. No, it's your karma to realize that you are a being of divinity, that you have the divine essence within you, and that no, you're worth much more. You're not here to be a punching bag. You know, that kind of awareness is also there. And that is that empowerment. It is not telling us to be, to be in relationships that I'm bringing this up because this is particularly so in terms of, because they said I'm interested in more interpersonal or relationship issues here. Okay. So this is about the karma thing. It's a much deeper and much larger conversation. So this is a very broad, explanation. Many of you have already been in my karma class, and we've spoken about this over many days. It's not just a 1 day, 1 hour conversation. Okay. But then from this, we say, does good and bad have equal value? What do you think? As a karma, it has an equal value as what you're doing. But the outcome of it, the gravity of it will be very different. And everything is colored by your intention. So you really need to slow down your actions and to really think, what is the purpose of me doing this? Why do I need to do this? What is my intention? You need to hold on to that intention for now, not about the result of the intention. Just hold on to the intention and do what needs doing. Now, when it comes to the love of the divine, now in all of this, we're talking about love. But here, we're still talking about a very transactional love. And transactions, that vyavaharik transaction, vyavaharik karma. Vyavaharik is transactional, okay? It's like the personality, many different ways to actually explain it. So just let's stick to transactional for now. The transactions of what people do also is inclusive of love, okay? But we try to explain the divine as human. We try to personify the divine. And that's where we limit the understanding of love. We try to give a form. Now, we've seen imagery right now. We've seen 8 different forms of the Navadurga already, okay? But those are all forms of different facets of the same one divine in 9 different forms. We've seen 8 so far, right? So that divine actually is formless. It is beyond our comprehension even, right? So just imagine, we're seeing goddesses with 4 arms and 8 arms and 3 eyes. I mean, if we see a child who's born with 4 arms, then we know that there's been some kind of a defect, and then there is surgery and all of these things happening. So we accept it as fantasy. But when it crystallizes to a human life form, then we find it very difficult to accept it. But at the same time, we want to give divinity a human form so that it is acceptable to us. But in that limitation, we limit ourselves to understanding God, goddess as a being. And it is above that. It is much vaster. The love that we are speaking of the divine is not the love you would feel for your parent or your sibling or your child or your partner. It's not that love. That love is still very transactional, right? I'll say this for myself. I'll speak for myself. I've got my children. Some of you, a couple of you in this session already have met my children, okay? And I love them. One child is around, so they heard that as well. So, I love my children, but there are days in which they are very unlovable. And there are many more days when I am very unlovable as well. Okay. That's not a day when I'm dressed like this. Okay. So, and when we do things and when we behave unlovable, it's really difficult for us as humans to love that other person. Right? It takes a lot of energy for us to remember, say, Ravina, you're a yoga teacher. You've got students all over the world. Please be more loving. Very, very difficult. It gives me a headache. Horrible headache. Okay. That is not the love that we have. That is divine love. That love we cannot perceive. That love we cannot fathom, we cannot put into words. In a way, it is one tiny fraction. I mean, when that example where you pushed me away from the oncoming bus, that goodness that came naturally to you in that split second, that is that love. But you can't use that and say, hey, I pushed her because I have love for her. And that'll be really freaking people out. Like, it's a bit strange, right? But that freaking out kind of unconditional love is that love of the divine. It's the love of the divine that still gives us enough prana and breath to wake up the next morning after you've done a horrible thing the previous night. It's still love. It's love that we cannot express as humans. It's the love of life. It's the love of breath that flows through us. It's the love of us being able to experience this entirety and still make no sense of it. So it's the love that allows us to be ignorant fools, stumbling around, doing all sorts of nonsense, but it's still love. We're still around. Just imagine if love was only meant for all the intellectually advanced, discerning people. We would not have the fun and joy of all our stupidity. So we are here for universal entertainment, actually. We are here to entertain each other with all our ups and downs. And I think we need to enjoy that. One other thing that I see, these conversations can go on, but I just want to clarify one thing here. She said that the purpose is for the divine Shakti to experience herself. There is a correction there. It is not Shakti wanting to experience themselves. Shakti is the experience. Shakti is moving. Shakti already exists all around. The purpose of existence is for Purusha, for Shiva to experience himself. Because Shiva, of pure consciousness, is inert. It is Jara. It cannot experience. There is nothing for them to experience. It is just that still experience. It's just the being. But for that beingness to experience itself is where Shiva unites with Shakti. So Shakti gives all of these different waves. Shiva is the ocean and Shakti is the wave, or it creates that, all those different fingers that move out of the gloves. Okay, so it is not Shakti experiencing herself, it is Shiva or Purusha experiencing himself through Prakriti, Shiva experiencing himself through Shakti. Okay, so there is a slight correction there, but otherwise I think this was a deep enough question which can go on for a very long time, but I hope I've answered some of it, and I hope that makes sense. I know you said that, but I'm sharing this with all of you. I hope that made sense. Okay, but and I think it was a brilliantly timed question, because this is a day which is dedicated to Mahāgauryai, who is the embodiment of compassion, of love and forgiveness. Okay, forgiveness, because you can't keep carrying all of that around. And that's why forgiveness, not just for the people who we like to forgive. Big one, okay? So I'll leave you with that. You don't just forgive those whom you like to forgive. You forgive because you love yourself. Not the ones, you're not doing it for someone else, you're doing it for yourself. Okay? You don't want to carry that along. And also, it's never going to happen in one day. And forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. Forgiveness means you evolve and you learn, and you don't get yourself in that same mess another time. And until you learn that, you might need to do that. You might need to fall a couple of times till you realize, oh, you jump over this, you don't walk over it. Okay. I will leave you with all of these thoughts. It was a pretty deep satsang. And I know for a fact that many of you will have lots of questions, especially if you've not heard of these things before. Please stay with those questions, ask questions. I will be, so now that we're nearing the end of Navaratri, by next week, I will be putting out, in fact, maybe I might do it today if I really have nothing to do, but I will be putting out the dates for the mantra Diksha and the mantra initiation that we'll be having next. For those of you who have already been initiated, I hope you continue with your practice. Navaratri is a time where any kind of yogic endeavor is amplified. Okay. So you being here for your sadhana every single day is a sign of actually amplifying your own potential, amplifying your own sadhana. Okay, it's the energy during Navaratri is immense, especially during this Navaratri. Okay, it is the most potent time for yoga practitioners. I don't mean asana practitioners, yoga practitioners, to actually deepen their sadhana. So go for it. And for those of you who have already been practicing for a while, I will be having a couple of classes, and that will be around like maybe in the next couple of weeks, on states of consciousness. Okay, and these are the next classes after you've been meditating for a while, after I've initiated you, after we've gone through perfecting your practice. This is to understand consciousness. Okay, I will let you know the dates soon. And for those of you who'd like to be initiated and who'd like to come into the mantra sadhana or practice, then I will put out those dates as well. Okay. So I will speak with you all soon. And Hari Om Tat Sat.